stand in the shade over there. But good afternoon and welcome. My name is Matthew Heckles. I am the Regional Administrator for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Thank you for being here today. We have a number of folks who will speak, and we have a wonderful lineup for you today. So, first I'd like to thank the federal delegation, Senators Carper and Coons, from Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester's office. We have Victoria, I believe. We had representatives from the state. The county is represented today by County Executive Matt Meyer, and of course Mayor Purzycki is here along with a couple of councilwomen, Harley and Oliver, and of course all of the teams for the local governments who work on housing issues in the state of Delaware. I'd like to thank Reverend Keeling for hosting us. We just completed a really invigorating roundtable discussion focused on the redevelopment of the east side of Wilmington, and on a larger scale, how we work together to solve the issue of a lack of housing supply in our country. I'm really excited and pleased today to welcome from HUD headquarters our Deputy Secretary Adrian Todman and our Chief of Staff Jen Jones as well. I'll have to get a bigger podium next time. So, today is June 1st. We mark a couple of celebrations today. We start with the celebration of Pride Month. We also celebrate homeownership during June. And today is really a day of action, a national day of action for HUD. This morning, HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge launched the Housing Supply National Initiative called Our Way Home. Our Way Home is the department's answer to the President's call to solve the housing supply deficit that our nation faces and makes it so difficult for so many families to find, afford, and keep a roof over their heads. Adrian Thompson is Todman is the 12th Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. She has a great experience as the CEO of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. Prior to that, she served as the Executive Director of the District of Columbia Housing Authority. Deputy Secretary Todman has also spent time at HUD as a career employee, working on public housing, public and Indian housing, the Office of the Secretary as well, looking for program solutions and policies to streamline implementation. At HUD, this administration really believes that we have a responsibility to confront housing insecurity and help ensure access to good homes, to eliminate all forms of housing discrimination, and to build our nation's infrastructure in a way that expands equitable housing for all people. So today it's my pleasure to introduce to you Deputy Secretary Todman.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It is hot, it is humid, and so I know that I plan to be brief in respect of everybody's temperature today. It's great to be here in Delaware. I was telling the senator earlier that usually I go through Delaware, so it is a true blessing and a pleasure to be here with the mayor, the county executive, senators, and all of you, the community. It is great to be here. And you know, over the past several years, I've had an opportunity to travel the country, and in this job and former jobs, and everywhere I go, whether it's Utah, Nebraska, California, Texas, Indiana, Illinois, I usually run into someone or someones who are running into a housing challenge, whether it's them or their child, trying to buy their first home, trying to afford their first apartment. We are facing challenges across the country. And these are challenges that are solvable. It is not impossible. It is not impossible to take on housing affordability. I'll tell you what is impossible is trying to encourage my 26-year-old daughter that her mom has cool dance moves, but that's impossible. But what is possible is solving the housing affordability issue that we have today. And how it gets done is exactly what's happening here. Family by family, block by block, community by community. It doesn't happen overnight. It happened over several nights, several days, lots of hard work. I've seen this hard work done over and over again, and I see the hard work that is happening here now. And it is good work, and work that I know will make a difference in the lives of the people who live here and the people who will live here for years to come. You know, Matt mentioned that the Secretary announced this morning a new housing kickoff to how we're going to center HUD's work. Unless you are an expert in what I call HUD Greek, there's this alphabet soup of programs, right? You go through sort of like a compendium of all the HUD programs, and if you're a local elected or a community development member, you're like, how do you even make this work? Like, what does it all mean? How do you knit it together? And so what the Secretary is doing is making sure that we are all going to figure out how to make our way home. And we're going to do that using the tools we already have in our toolkit, so that we can take this alphabet soup of programs and have it make sense in plain spoken sense to the people who are building housing and the people who need to understand what it means to bring communities back, to build housing, and to preserve what you have. And so, as Matt said, we have spread out across the country to really talk about this kickoff. And what we're doing now is in support of what our president announced just last week. And let me tell you something. I have been in the housing business for a long time, a very long time. And I have seen secretaries and presidents come and go. It is rare to find a secretary who is as passionate about her department and her programs as Marcia Fudge. And it is rare to find a president and a White House who is actively supportive of housing affordability. The president's housing supply action plan is something that I have not seen in many, many years in terms of centering all of the federal family, whether it's HUD and USDA, VA, Treasury. Even Treasury does housing. Getting us all on the same boat and saying, we're going to make sure we're doing this for the American people. So this is a rare occasion. And so what we're doing is in support of his vision. And what I'm doing today, and Jen Jones and Matt, is supporting our secretary, who's going to make sure that the tools we have are working for families. Now, I will say, we also need new tools. We also need new tools. The president has put forward a 2023 budget that expands our voucher program. We need more rental assistance, expands the money we need to do what's gap financing, the home program, so we can put money into neighborhoods like this. New initiatives to make sure we have down payment assistance for families who are entering the homeownership arena for the first time, maybe first in their generation. So we look forward to working with all of our partners in Congress and everywhere to sort of get the president's vision, the secretary's vision across the finish line. But let me say this. One of the reasons I love coming to events like this is that I pick up something, I learn something that I then talk about throughout the rest of the country. So what you're doing here, what you are doing here, I will be talking about in Nevada, in Idaho, in Florida, in Wyoming, because it's going to take this level of intentionality, family by family, block by block, community by community, for us to be moving forward as a country as we should. Thank you so much for your invitation here. Thank you, Senators, for your support and what you're doing to support our department. We appreciate you. Thank you.
So we've heard a lot in the news lately about the increasing cost of housing, that communities around the country are facing a nationwide shortage of affordable homes. This impacts renters, it impacts homeowners, families, seniors, persons with disabilities, veterans, students, and hardworking members of our communities. The problem is pretty simple, really. We haven't built enough housing over the last several years. For too long, our supply creation has not kept up with the demand for and household formation. By some estimates, and I think the one that we trust most, we are down about 1.5 million homes in the country. And here in Delaware, according to the National Income Housing Coalition's report, there are 31 homes available for every 100 of the lowest income renters. There's a shortage of homes, of affordable homes in Delaware of 18,000 for the lowest income renters. These are Delawareans who earn $20,000 a year and generally spend over 50% of their income on housing costs. Our answer to that is to increase supply of housing. And that's exactly what the Secretary announced this morning at the launch of the Our Way Home initiative. Next, though, I'd like to ask Senator Coons to join me up here. Senator Coons doesn't need much of an introduction to this crowd. As you know, he was a county council president for Newcastle County and county executive, and is now the U.S. Senator for the state of Delaware, junior senator for the state of Delaware, serving on the Appropriations, Judiciary, Foreign Relations, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and Ethics committees. The senator has a long and distinguished career in addressing affordable housing for people in Delaware and across the country. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Matt, and it's great to have you back here as our HUD Region 3 Administrator. Madam Deputy Secretary, thank you for gracing us with your presence today. Some of us know that Delaware used to have a tagline, small but mighty. I would argue that we have been graced with the presence of a small but mighty Deputy Secretary, someone who punches above her weight and delivers a great message. To the Mayor, to the County Executive, thank you for your engagement and leadership on making sure that housing is safe, sanitary, affordable, and decent, and to our nonprofit and faith community partners, to Reverend Keeling and Central Baptist CDC, to Kevin Smith and Habitat for Humanity, to Rich Priswar and Woodlawn trustees, and there are so many other great partners and supporters from our financial services community, from our faith community, from our nonprofit community. It takes everybody rowing in the same direction to get this done. I've been elected 22 years. Before that, I worked many years ago for the Coalition for the Homeless. And the guy who founded that, Bob Hayes, had a simple saying that has stayed with me. If you want to make a difference in education issues, first solve housing. If you want to make a difference in public health issues, first solve housing. If you want to make a difference in public safety issues, first solve housing. If you have challenges with children, if you have challenges with seniors, if you have challenges with families, if you have challenges with hope and opportunity, the platform on which all of that rests is safe, sanitary, decent, and affordable housing. Build me that platform and I can build anything else for our people, our community, our families, and our society. Take away quality housing and almost nothing else matters. When children don't have a safe home that's healthy to live in at night, they can't focus, they can't learn, they can't grow. When parents don't have a house that's reliable and safe that they can afford in which to live or raise their families, they almost can't focus on anything else. When seniors are vulnerable and exposed in housing that isn't safe or livable or decent, they almost can't do anything else. So the most important thing we could do, and we are doing it together, is to deliver housing. Our President Joe Biden knows the East Side. Our President Joe Biden knows Wilmington. Our President Joe Biden knows the needs of families and housing, and has been sadly the case too long in the past. We have previously had secretaries of HUD who frankly knew nothing about housing. We have had leaders in housing who did not come from the housing community and were unfamiliar with the tools they were entrusted by previous presidents. Need I say anything more? I need not. Let me just say that in Secretary Fudge and in Deputy Secretary Todman and in Regional Administrator Heckles, we've got a dream team of folks who have spent years in local elected leadership, in Congress, in HUD, in housing, in policy. And if we can pull all this together and row in the same direction, there's nearly no limit to the good we can do. Look at what's behind me. Beautiful, brand new housing being built by, with, and for the community, where the folks who will end up living in these homes are part of the teams building these homes. Let me close by saying this. The great thing about the effort, the initiative, the investment we are all making together in housing. First, of course, the benefits of having better quality housing. Second, the ways in which it stabilizes a community. As everybody sees the community steadily getting better, they all invest more in their own family, their community, and in their street, their block, and their neighborhood. And then it's opportunities. The skills that are needed to build high-quality housing are great skills. The jobs that come from construction are good jobs. Ideally, they are union jobs. This is an opportunity for us to knock down what has been a barrier to progress for far too many families for far too long. To build wealth, to build opportunity, to build skills, and to build a future. So, Madam Deputy Secretary, I hope you will convey back to our friend, our President, that we are grateful for his leadership in announcing the Our Way Home campaign that looks at how we tackle supply. You know, supply and demand, supply and demand. As you heard from Matt, we've underbuilt by about 1.5 million units nationally the supply of affordable, decent housing that we need. We've got a chance now to set those scales right. That'll impact inflation and costs. That'll impact opportunities in future. That'll impact jobs. So there are great things we can and will all do together. And our congressional delegation, my friend and colleague, my senior senator, Tom Carper, and my Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, we have been focusing in what we've done in congressionally directed spending on tackling housing. We've just submitted our next round, and it's roughly $30 million in 16 requests in partnership with the state, the county, the city, nonprofit groups to lend what we can specifically in targeted ways here in Wilmington and here in Delaware. We recently saw a tragic incident where families on Adams Street, through no fault of their own, were suddenly homeless, and there was no place for them to go. A painful reminder that when there isn't the supply, the slightest change in circumstances can throw families into chaos and to loss. On a bipartisan basis, we will do our absolute best to deliver the resources, the funding that HUD deserves, and we as a community of residents of Wilmington, and every single one of us is a resident of Wilmington, are going to do our level best to make sure this is not the last announcement or ribbon cutting of new homes, new housing, and new opportunity. This is the way that we build together our way home. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coons, for your dedication, your commitment, and for sticking with it, quite frankly. Senator Carper. Senator Carper began service here in Delaware in 1976. He was a U.S. congressman for the state, represented the state in Congress, as well was the state governor for 8 years. Has always been focused on fiscal conservatism, I think, along with an efficient delivery of services. While governor, he was the chairman of the National Governors Association and was elected senator in 2000 and has served 12 years as the senior senator for the state of Delaware. Senator Carper.
Thanks very much, Matt. I would say, with respect to Chris's remarks, I'm Tom Carper, and I approve this message. I should just sit down right now, Chris. He doesn't feel that well today. Can you imagine how good he could be if he felt good? I mean, my Lord, my Lord. Our congressional delegation, Madam Secretary, we're kind of a church-going crowd here, between Lisa Blunt Rochester and Chris and myself. And we oftentimes invoke Matthew 25. Matthew 25 talks about our moral responsibility with respect to the least of these. When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was thirsty, did you give me to drink? When I was sick and in prison, did you visit me when I was a stranger in your land? Did you welcome me? It doesn't say anything in Matthew 25 about when I didn't have a roof over my head, or when I was living in my car, or when I was like sleeping under a bridge. Did you do anything about it? But the inference is clear. We have a moral responsibility to those people as well. I'd add to that, it's not just it's not just a responsibility on the federal government. It's not just a responsibility of the state government. It's not just the responsibility of the city or the county. It's a shared responsibility. It's not just the responsibility of nonprofit organizations or just the church, or the churches that we are part of. It's a shared responsibility. And what the president is seeking to do here is to bring us together and as one, as a family of one, to address this challenge. Some of you, I don't know, Secretary Todman, if you remember a congressman named Bill Gray. Bill Gray from Pennsylvania is a minister up in Philadelphia, and on Sundays he preached at this huge church, and the rest of the time he was in Washington with us in the House of Representatives. Bill Gray used to tell the story. I love to tell this story. And it's a story not about an urban area like where we're gathered today. It's a story about a community out in the country where the kids are playing. They have just a lot of room to run and play. And one of the places in this community out in the country is the kids would play around a abandoned well. And they would sometimes, like, the wells had stones and it was in a circle, and they would climb up on the stones and pretend like they were going to fall in to the well. And one day a kid fell in. And it wasn't that deep. You hear them splashing around in the water, and everybody the other kids ran back to their homes and grabbed their moms and dads and said, Johnny's falling into the well. We need to save him, and let's get a rope, or let's get a rope. So one house after the other went into the basement. They went into the garage, and they looked for a rope, and they found a rope, and they brought their respective ropes running back to the well. And one after the other, they tied, they lowered their ropes into the well to save this kid's life. Nobody had a rope long enough. And so one of the kids said, why don't we tie our ropes together? And they did, and they lowered the community rope into the well and saved the life of the child. I heard Bill Gray tell that story hundreds of times. And I don't know if that's a true story, but it's a great story. And it's a story that I think that's good for today as well. We're talking about tying we all bring different pieces of rope, some longer than others, some stronger than others, but we bring our piece of the rope together, we tie them together, and we're lowering them down into the wells to save a lot of families that need to be saved. They need help, and it's not the responsibility of any one of us, but it's really the moral responsibility of all of us. I would close by saying this. Had the pleasure of serving you in uniform for many years of my life. Last Vietnam veteran serving in the U.S. Senate, and when I came to Delaware to get thank you. When I came to Delaware to go to graduate school on a GI Bill, and I got a job after graduation, I wanted to buy a house and didn't have the money for the down payment, and the VA helped to make it possible for me to become a homeowner at a very early age. And what we've tried to do over the years is to structure federal programs in conjunction with state and local programs, in conjunction with nonprofits and churches. We try to craft our policies in a way that we work together. We work in combination with one another to grow the amount of affordable housing that we have, and to make more affordable the housing that is there. Last thing I'll say is this: there's work for all of us. There's also work for the private sector. And we have, Chris and I worked for years and on tax policy. I serve on the Finance Committee. We work for years on tax policy that actually incentivizes private companies, private businesses to build and create and provide affordable housing for all kinds of families across this country. So we came to this country in different boats. We're in different boats today, and some people think our boat is sinking. I don't think it is. I think we still have a bright future as a country. And with the collective effort and the leadership of our president, a lot of the people here and across the country who share or understand this moral responsibility, who take it seriously, I say, bring it on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer has probably he's in Delaware. This is not hard to be, but he's one of the newer guys on the block here. In 2016, he was elected chief executive for the state's largest county, Newcastle County. The last couple of years, of course, he's been focused, as many of us have been, on COVID relief, really creating the first, leading the effort to make Delaware the first state to offer free and open COVID testing, administering over 300,000 tests, looking at the other components of the pandemic and ensuring that there was high-speed internet access for hard-to-reach communities. And in just 2 weeks, stood up the largest full-service homeless shelter in the state, where we deconcentrated shelter for homeless individuals during the pandemic, and that's called the Hope Center. Matt, thank you for all of your work.
Thank you, Matt. It's fantastic to have a regional administrator who knows Bennett Street as well as we all know Bennett Street. So welcome home. For those of you that don't know, the Deputy Secretary is from the Virgin Islands. Today we're announcing a program called Our Way Home. We thought there was no better way to bring you home than provide a little Virgin Islands weather. So welcome home. I will be very, very brief. It's fantastic to be here among partners, collaborators, Senator Carper, Senator Coons, and Representative Blunt Rochester. Their role in creating things like the Hope Center cannot be overstated. Last night, 396 people slept there, including 201 children. These are human beings. These are families who otherwise would not have anywhere to stay. Carrie Casey is here. People talk about me in the Hope Center. It was her idea, along with Renee Beeman. They came to me with it. Give Carrie a big round of applause. Senator Coons mentioned those families on Adams Street just a couple weeks ago who literally had nowhere to go. It was a phone conversation between myself and Mayor Purzycki that enabled every one of those families to have a place to go. There are other ways that we're doing extraordinary collaboration. Thanks to the extraordinary advocacy of Maria Bynum, we are one of a small group, that's right, give Maria a round. We are one of a small group of jurisdictions across this country in something called the House America program, to compare best practices across the country, to make sure we're providing data and metrics on our housing expenditures. We announced about 6 months ago a $30 million program to address this crisis in affordable housing, and we're going to be putting that money on the street very, very shortly if 7 members of County Council let me do it. So in closing, let me just say thank you so much for visiting. Please come again. As was stated, the President knows Wilmington. He knows Bennett Street. He's been there, and it's fantastic for us all to be working together on the same issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Mayor Purzycki is the city's 57th mayor, and also is someone who is focused on making sure that Wilmington becomes the greatest city that we have available to us, and increasing the level of prosperity for its citizens and making it a wonderful place to live. It's a place that I have chosen to live with my wife and our boys, and we couldn't be happier anywhere but here. The mayor has focused on this neighborhood, the east side of Wilmington, because of the potential that we see here. And what we want to talk about today, what we are talking about today, is how it takes all of these different levels of government and agencies and nonprofits and groups coming together to make a difference in a neighborhood like this. But it takes leadership. It takes a mayor who understands a neighborhood like this and the work that it takes to get the job done. Mayor Purzycki?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, when we were together a little bit ago, I said what is unique about Wilmington is we can walk around the whole city. Might take a day, but you can walk around the whole city. You can't walk around Baltimore and Philadelphia. So you can kind of get your arms around this city. The other thing that distinguishes our city is when you go down and talk to Nevada and Idaho, I think you said, in Florida, you wouldn't get 2 U.S. senators coming to an event like this, right? Our guys, they're always there for us. And and it's only because he must be in traction somewhere that Carney's not here, and I don't know where Lisa is, but they're always here because we are, we're friends. We are flat out friends. When I watch the New York governor and the New York mayor killing each other, I just can't even understand that because, we're a good bunch around here. We're all committed to the same great efforts. The other thought I have is I described to a friend of mine yesterday, where is he, Gregory, but I was describing to him that Tom Carper and I lived through the 60s. And so I think it's our perspective. I know, we're old. I know how old you are.
Stop there.
Don't tell me. He knew Winston Churchill personally. So
Churchill used to say when you're going through hell, keep
going. But so when everybody else is just hair on fire over what's going on, I know when I listen to Tom talking about the optimism he feels, I feel that too, because when you've been through a time when a president's assassinated, MLK is assassinated, Bobby Kennedy's assassinated, we have all kinds of civil rights leaders assassinated, the campus is completely afire, the Democratic convention gets to be a bunch of cops just beating the living hell out of protesters. This just doesn't seem that hard. I mean, we've got problems, but this doesn't seem that hard. But so what I just explained was, I feel as if we're kind of going into a wormhole, one of those space things, And what we don't know is what's going to be on the other side. I don't think the world's ending. I just think it's going to be really different. And it's going to be different in education. All the things that people talk about and take for granted, Reverend, we say, let's have a park for the kids. The kids don't show up at the park the way they used to. Let's build basketball courts. They don't come out and play basketball. They use this damn thing, too much. But the world is different. When you go to the hospital now, it's different. I got an appointment tomorrow morning. He wants a video with me first thing at 7:30. Well, not bad, but it's really different. Education is really different. We just don't know what's going to happen. The one thing we do know, to the point that Chris made earlier, is that the one constant is going to be a place where our kids are raised. The neighborhoods where they're raised. It's not just the houses. It's the whole environment that these kids grow up in. And I take it as a personal challenge, and the only way I choose to evaluate what we do in my administration is if, when this is all over, our kids are better off, our neighborhoods are stronger, and certainly not just our well-off neighborhoods, because we have plenty of them, but the poor neighborhoods. They really have to shine by the time we leave, because that's the only grade that I care about. That's the letter grade I really care about. And so we have so many things, there's so many fronts that we fight this war on. It's not just new housing, which is important, affordable housing, really important. I was kind of a home ownership nut when I got here, and now I realize really home ownership's not for everybody right now. We have to provide good rental housing for people, really nice, clean, well-managed, 100% well-managed. Notice, all you HUD guys, well-managed projects. You know the difference between one that's managed and one doesn't, where the guy doesn't know what he's doing. So we have that. We've got work. We're going to work on our landlords. We've got work with Habitat and Brushes with Kindness, going up to see a little old lady who hadn't had the money to take care of her house for 30 years. Well, when you don't take care of your house for 30 years, let me tell you what happens. And so these guys knock on the door and say, here's what the city will do. The city will take care of windows, doors, and roof. That's a pretty good start. And by the way, we can go to the state and we can add on to that the heater that doesn't work, the air conditioner that doesn't work, and on and on. So all I can tell you, Madam Secretary, we have a wonderful, loving community. And we all have our shoulders to the wheel. And we welcome you. And Matt, it's so great to have you where you are. It's nice to have a friend in high places. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Purzycki. So I'm a policy guy, first and foremost. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what we're really talking about here with this Our Way Home initiative. And then I'd like to invite Kevin up to talk about the real work that's being done on this street itself. But really, for the past several years, we've been focused on the pandemic. HUD has responded, Congress has responded, and we've acted. We've provided rental assistance. We've acted to prevent foreclosures, to house the homeless, to support small businesses, to support state and local governments, families, and we've done a lot more. We've responded, but now we're really looking to the future. And we're looking for how, over the next several years, we will make a difference in the lives of families all around the country. Today is the launch of the Our Way Home campaign. Again, we are addressing the lack of supply of affordable and housing of all types around the country. But the work has already begun. This administration has been working on housing supply since day one. In September of 2021, FHA and the Treasury Department partnered to relaunch the Federal Financing Bank Risk Share Initiative. This makes capital available to housing finance agencies to expand the amount of rental housing that's available around the country. In December, FHA conducted a competitive sale of over 1,700 HUD-held single-family homes, and these sales went to nonprofits and mission-driven organizations. For too long, about 10% of FHA sales were gobbled up by investors. Now, we're changing that. HUD recently announced over $10 billion for fiscal year 2022 formula grants. That's going to make a difference around the country in the CDBG programs, the National Housing Trust programs, and so on. I think the best example of how we take this to the next step is the President's recommended budget. A budget for HUD that requests over $72 billion. That's approximately an $11.6 billion increase over the FY22 annualized budget. This is the biggest request, the largest request, the boldest request for housing in the history of our country. It includes a $50 billion mandatory funding program to address housing supply by supporting the work that housing finance agencies do to create affordable rental housing, and to allow and incentivize local jurisdictions to push back and tear down the barriers to creating housing around the country, especially affordable housing. The budget also provides more than $1.9 billion in discretionary funding for HOME. It's the highest funding level in 15 years. And HOME is the program that is best used to create affordable homeownership around the country. The budget provides $180 million to support 2,000 new units of permanently affordable housing for senior citizens and persons with disabilities, supporting the administration's priority to maximize independent living for people with disabilities. Over $32 billion for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which will increase the number of vouchers available to low-income families by 200,000 new vouchers, 200,000 new families being supported to pay their rent. That's the largest one-year increase in vouchers since the program was authorized. So here in Delaware, in Wilmington, I'm proud to be with all of these distinguished speakers today, the senators, the county executive, Congresswoman's office is here, the city, the mayor, city council representatives, and of course, the people who are really doing the work on the ground, the leadership at local nonprofits and community development organizations that are doing the work here on the east side of Wilmington. We've heard from a couple of these leaders about how they're using the Rescue Act funds, the American Rescue Plan funds that the Biden administration and enacted by Congress a while back to help communities recover from the pandemic. In the city of Wilmington, the number is $50 million being invested in housing primarily here in the east side of Wilmington. In Newcastle County, the number is $30 million, and so on. There is funding available here for affordable housing development. We need the leadership and we need the people doing the hard work day in and day out to get the job done. Partners like the Habitat for Humanity of Newcastle County, the Woodlawn Trustees, the Wilmington Housing Authority, Reverend Keeling's Community Development Corporation, the Wilmington Land Bank. These are all the groups that are working here on the east side to implement the plan and create that new vision and that new neighborhood. The governor's plan is important as well. Not only are we creating stable and affordable housing for people in this neighborhood, but the supportive services, including education. Governor Carney's plan will invest $90 million in the elementary school just around the corner. All of these partners assembled together are changing the lives of people who live here, changing the neighborhood of the people who live here, and changing the city and the state and the country that we all serve. But this is also a call to action today. We were asking everyone to come together and join Secretary Fudge and HUD and the administration in this initiative. We applaud all of the steps that have been taken so far, but we know that we have a lot of work to do. So Our Way Home will bring communities together. We'll bring state, local, county, city, federal agencies across the board together. We will share ideas. We will share all of the good ideas that we have. And let me tell you, we are going to celebrate the progress that's being made to address housing supply. And we'll be back in Delaware because there's going to be a lot to celebrate here on the east side of Wilmington and across the state of Delaware. So the work here on Bennett Street is what we're talking about. The redevelopment of homes on both sides of the street here, where you start with a core and you build out, where you start from strength, you start from corners, you start from businesses, and you take a holistic approach to the neighborhood and you improve it. And it's all across all of the different types of buildings, all across the different types of families who live here. And at the very, very front of that is Habitat for Humanity. This is Amalia Way, and Amalia Way 2 is behind me. This project has home funding, it has city funding, it is made possible by all of those here today. So Kevin, I'd like to ask you to come on up and tell us a little bit more about this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I had the pleasure of working with Matt when he worked for DSHA. It's great to have you now in the regional office. And I want to welcome the Deputy Secretary to Delaware. You know, we knew you were coming, so about 2 years ago we started tearing up I-95 so you wouldn't be able to drive through it. You had to pull off and come in here and see the great things that are happening in Wilmington. So I know it's hot and I'm the last one. The only worst thing is if I was following a Habitat homeowner after they made everybody cry. But I just want to welcome everybody to the Amalia Way 2. Amalia Way 1 was behind you. We completed and sold the last house last month. Let me give you just a perspective on this part of the east side. The block down, Habitat developed 17 houses over 10 years ago. You've got these 12 going in. These will be done by July. The next block will be developed by Woodlawn trustees, where they're going to develop 20 houses, affordable rental for families. And then the next block down will be another 20 Habitat homes for sale for first-time home buyers. That's just Bennett Street. Then you have Central Baptist CDC, you have Wilmington Housing Authority, more properties that Woodlawn is working on in other parts of the east side. We talked about the critical repairs that are going on, over 100 that are going to go on for low-income homeowners that already live in their houses here on the east side. Tremendous change. We recognize that for some people there's an impression about the east side that has developed over the decades because of the lack of investment. Folks, this is about to change in a dramatic way. We're telling people they need to get in now into this neighborhood because it's going to change for the better. And it's because of all these different partners. I want you to look at this sign behind me. We've been talking a lot about federal money, right? And last week I got the document from Habitat International outlining President Biden's long list of recommendations that now HUD's going to work hard to implement. And I'm going to borrow the president's words to summarize what that meant. I'm going to modify it a little bit. It's a big deal. I know most of you are not housing geeks like me, but it's a big deal what the president has recommended and what we're trying to get passed. Long overdue. And it goes back to the history of this country, the lack of investment, and the lack of investment in people in color and in neighborhoods like this. And we all know what the ramifications of that. So we need to be celebrating this opportunity and move into it. The senator Carper talked about these boats. We need to lash our boats together like all these people on the list here and others and join together to make this change happen. So I want to invite you to tour one of these homes so you can see what it looks like, what it feels like. Again, join us in this work. This isn't just for those elected officials and the governments. It's for the churches and the faith groups, for the schools, the communities, individuals. We welcome you to come out and volunteer with us, and we welcome the subcontractors, the minority subcontractors, to work with us as well. So thank you all very much for coming out and supporting all that we do.
Thank you again, Reverend Keeling, for hosting our roundtable earlier today. It is the first of several, probably many, that we will have to discuss how we improve housing supply across the country. We started it here in Wilmington. Thank you to Maria Bynum and the staff at HUD, staff at Habitat and the city for making this event possible. And thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it very much.
So I've been here many times.
I got you.
Thanks.
Let us know if we can help in any way.
Up to your schedule. Yeah.